Hello here, caterpillars. Today we are in a different room. This is probably a room you guys have never seen before, but this room has kind of gotten sad for me. So obviously, as you can tell by the title of this video, this is kind of more of a lot sadder, harder video for me to make. We'll get into that more later on, but I just kind of wanted to, I've contemplated making this video over the years multiple times, talking about this subject. I was kind of hoping to make it when I had more of a happy, exciting news, but anyways, we'll get into it. So me and my husband have been struggling with fertility issues for 4 years now, maybe 5. Probably started trying September 2020. So we had a year of trying to get pregnant, no luck. We got referred to a fertility doctor after a year, which is pretty standard if you haven't got pregnant within the first year. Usually your doctor would recommend you going to see a fertility specialist to figure out what was going on. My favorite line is, "I am the problem, it's me, I am the problem," from Taylor Swift. Or Taylor Swift's like, "I am the problem, it's me." That is definitely me in the situation. I am definitely the reason why we are having such trouble getting pregnant. So I am having issues with ovulating not properly. So the doctor put me on, I was on one medication for like a month or 2, but we didn't have good results. I didn't have a good time on it. It hurt my stomach. I think I had a lot of stomach pain while I was on it. And you only usually take that medication for about 5 days, kind of on starting around day 3 of your cycle, to try to help get you to produce eggs appropriately. So I was on one medication, then they switched me over to Clomid, which I did 5 rounds of Clomid with a medication called Ovidrel, which induces ovulation, because I was ovulating around day 14 to day 16 was kind of normally how I ovulated, and normally you're supposed to do it around day 10 to day 12. So we did 5 rounds of that, so basically 5 months of going in on day 3 of your cycle for ultrasound, blood work, and it's internal ultrasounds basically only. You get very comfortable with internal ultrasounds if you go through fertility treatments. Like, it is just inevitable, it is going to happen. You go through so many of them. I have done so many, it's not a big deal. But you go in for day 3, then you go back for day 7, and then they keep tracking you basically until you ovulate, and then you come back at 2 weeks after that and have a pregnancy test done. So there's also a lot of shit ton of blood work done through all of this. I'm like, my whole arms were just black and bruised, because every time you're coming in for ultrasounds and all these things, they're also taking blood too. So your veins get very beat up. Like, my poor veins were just like black and blue. My poor arms were just so sore after the 5 months. And we decided to take a break after doing the 5 months. Like, we hadn't got anywhere. It was really frustrating. And the really frustrating thing is the doctor kept being like, "I don't know why you're not pregnant right now. You should be pregnant right now. Like, based on all the test results, you should be pregnant. Like, I don't know what's going on." So that was very frustrating. The last thing you want to hear, and it was so hard. I didn't want to take a break from doing the fertility treatments, because it just felt like we were giving up. It felt like, this is the only way I'm going to have a chance at getting pregnant, is doing these treatments, and if I don't do these treatments, I'm never going to get pregnant. So that was really hard. I hated taking a break in the beginning, but I didn't realize how much I really needed to take that break, and how much like my mental health needed it, just to kind of like take a step back. Enough with feeling like I'm a pincushion, and just, you know, I think we took like a 6-month break or something. We kind of took a break over the winter, and we're kind of like, okay, we'll rejoin when the weather's nice, because we had to go 45 minutes to this fertility doctor. And I take a lot of time off work to do all this stuff too. And I had some other testing done. It's like a sonohistogram, where they inject dye into you and then like run it through your ovaries, and then they like scan you on ultrasound to make sure there's no like fibroids or anything like that. And they found this little like thing. The doctor told me not to worry about if I never had a miscarriage before, and I said I hadn't because I'd never gotten pregnant at that time. So he was like, don't worry about it. Well, if anything ever happens, we'll worry about it then. So I was like, okay. And then we did another 5 rounds of Clomid. We didn't need the Ovidrel the second 5 rounds because by then I was kind of ovulating when I was supposed to be. Kind of around day 12 would be when I would ovulate. So we did that, and we started doing progesterone suppositories. And they're not fun. They're like this little suppository they just stick up into your hoo-ha. I think it was twice a day. And that was to try to help like maintain a pregnancy if I got pregnant, because they were thinking maybe that was the issue. So we tried that. That didn't work. So then we got put on a 2-year wait list for IVF, because at that point the doctor was like, okay, now that we've done 10 rounds of this and still nothing, I feel comfortable now putting you on IVF. So on the IVF list, because most of you probably don't know this unless you've ever gone through IVF or know someone that's gone through IVF, but IVF is extremely expensive. It is like $20,000 Canadian as of like last year or 2 years ago. It probably, probably varies a little bit, but around $20,000 for, a cycle. I like it to do a round of like IVF and everything like that. So we cannot afford that. So we went on the 2-year government funded wait list. So we were a year into the government funded list, and we found out we got pregnant naturally on our own. Super excited about it. We had a little bit of I was thinking I was having a miscarriage at week 6 because I started having some bleeding issues. And then because I was going to the fertility doctor, they had me come in. We did a 6-week ultrasound. We got to see the baby. Found out I was so convinced too that it was just like a chemical pregnancy. There wasn't actually going to be anything there. Like I was just like, nope, it's too good to be true. It's not happening. There's no way. Foreshadowing, it was too good to be true. No way. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna be real. And then I had my 6-week ultrasound. Found out there was a baby there. I was in fact pregnant. We confirmed it with blood work prior to. Like I had to come in after I got the positive pregnancy test. I had to come in and get a blood test done with them. They called me, said, yes, you are pregnant. We'll book you in for a 6-week ultrasound. So we did that. And then since I was having bleeding the day after the ultrasound for an entire week, not a ton, it was just a little light bleeding. They were like, we just want to check it out. They're like, we don't necessarily think you're having a miscarriage, but like you could be, and we just want to, know what's going on. So I came in at week 7. I was still pregnant. I could convince myself that I was having a miscarriage, and that we had lost the baby. And then pretty much after that, I saw the fertility doctor till week 10, and then I was discharged from them, and I went and saw my regular family doctor, and I was followed up with her until, normally you're supposed to go see the OB at 30 weeks, but I saw her as early as 18 weeks, just because we were having fertility issues, the OB just wanted to see me sooner. So we got sent to our 20-week scan. I wasn't able to do the 12-week one because I was away on holidays when that time frame kind of fell around, and they weren't able to get me in time because there's a test you have to do between 12 weeks and 11 weeks and 12 weeks, and we just didn't hit the time frame. We weren't getting around for it because we were gone to Montreal on holidays. So 20-week scan came up. They were saying that there was always issues about when my due date was. First it was January 7th, then it was January 1st, then it was January 7th. And then the ultrasound tech was like, are you sure? Because the baby's reading more due date would be January 14th. And she's like, when I put in my system of a 28-day cycle, it's supposed to be January 1st. So we were like, okay, well the fertility doctor told us on my scan, because they also thought I was a week ahead, that it was reading 6 days and 2 days, 6 weeks and 2 days, or 6 weeks and 3 days type of thing. So they kind of just picked somewhere. I was like, January 7th is kind of when we put it in our system would be your due date. So we went off what the fertility doctor had said, and this ultrasound tech was like, no, he's kind of reading small, but you know, I'll send off the report just so you guys know, like his head's kind of the size for a 20-weeker, but the rest of him is like the size of an 18-week-old baby. So my family doctor and the OB were just kind of like, oh, we're not too worried about it. You know, sometimes like babies can be a bit on the smaller side. We'll just keep an eye on him. And because of the way my uterus is too, they were worried because there's a little like divot in it or something that he could get stuck in that little divot and then he wouldn't grow big enough. So she was like, we'll take another like look when you come back at 30 weeks, see where he's at, where he's measuring, and then we'll kind of go from there. Come to October. In September, we had gone on like our baby moon to Iceland, which that was super fun. We were out there for a week. I went and hiked a mountain at 6 months pregnant. I had a normal pregnancy throughout. I had so much nausea. I was like so nauseous from week 9 to like week 16, I think. I had to be put on medication for it because like anytime I eat something, it would just instantly come back up again. And then we were out in Montreal. Actually, it was really bad because I thought I had more medication than I did because I was on it every 8 hours. I had to take the medication. So like 3 times a day. So I thought I had more with me than I did. So I only could take it in like the morning and the afternoon because it's like, okay, fine. If I throw up in the evening, I'm home. Like we're back at the place. It's fine. So like anytime I ate after, because I take my medication around like 6 o'clock at night. So anything I ate past 7 would be kind of when my medication had worn off and the next dose was due. I was throwing it all up until the morning. So if I ate anything after 7 o'clock that night, it was all just coming back up again. And I had this like, I go into more detail about this in my first trimester video, so I will probably end up posting that after this one, just to kind of talk about like what I was experiencing, everything I've gone through. I was going to make my second trimester video, but because I just hit the 3rd trimester and then I was going to plan on posting them kind of shortly back to back, but then we ran into issues. So this is where the story gets really sad. Around October, like Canadian Thanksgiving, that long weekend, the Friday night, we were about to go to bed and I stood up and all of a sudden there was just like this big giant gush. I just had this big giant gush of blood and it was like a substantial amount of blood, probably like this much or more of like blood and blood clots, and it was leaking out of me very fast. There were no contractions, so luckily because I had already seen my OB, she had told me what to do. If I ever had any complications, I was to call the hospital and speak to the like OB team, and like they would refer me to like they would direct me. So I called them. I got up, ran straight to the bathroom. There was just like a bloody mess just wherever I went. And called the hospital. They told me to come right away. We got there. They had asked me when's the last time I felt baby moving. I said about 15 minutes before I called. He was kicking me in the ribs. And so they hooked me up to the monitors. They were like, okay, our monitors are picking up some slight contractions. Do you feel any pain or anything? I was like, nope, I don't feel anything. Like, not sort of any cramping, no pain, nothing. Like, other than the fact that I'm bleeding, I feel perfectly fine. Like, other than the fact that I'm worried we're losing this baby tonight, like, I'm doing okay. So they got an ultrasound on me. They found out that my placenta had detached and that I had preeclampsia because my blood pressure was through the roof. And I'm always the type of person who had like really low blood pressure, like 110 over 70 or something is kind of what my normal blood pressure had been. And like my blood pressure had been pretty normal throughout like the entire pregnancy. Every time I'd gone to the doctor, like there was nothing like spiking or high or anything that they've noticed. So that was a bit strange. And so they immediately sent me off to the bigger hospital an hour away in London, just to make sure, because the hospital we stayed at, our local hospital can't adequately dip with newborn, like neonates that are under 32 weeks. So, and our baby was at 27 weeks at the time. So if we needed to deliver him that night, they would not be able to take care of him. So they sent me by ambulance to London, and had like a nurse come with me to monitor the baby the whole time, me and baby, to make sure like I didn't go into labor while we were there. and to kind of get him to a facility that once we needed to deliver a baby, that he would be okay and he would survive. So when we got there, they were like, the one doctor told me, like, you're going to be staying here until you have this baby. Like, we don't know when it is going to be, but you won't leave until you have your baby. Just based on how everything's looking and everything like that. And then throughout the night, I did get some worse pain. They said they still, like, they didn't see the contractions, I don't think that, or there were contractions, I'm not really 100% sure. Up on their monitoring equipment and stuff, but they had the fetal ultrasound on me the entire time. His heart rate was good. He was sounding good. They put an ultrasound on me too, quick to like check him out, check everything out, kind of see for themselves what stress normal hospital was seeing. And then they admitted me to antenatal, and the doctor I spoke to on that Saturday morning, like 8 o'clock in the morning. So like I had been awake for like 24 hours at this point because I could not sleep because I was in so much pain, and I had to like lay a certain way for the monitors too to work. And so like I'm just laying in this hospital bed. Like my husband couldn't come with me in the ambulance. And because it was 2 in the morning when the ambulance finally came to transfer me, I had sent him home, have a good night's sleep, because I was like, I don't think this baby's coming. Like, I'm not feeling any contractions, and even if he does come right away, like, if I have to deliver natural, like, there will be time. So the nurse was quite worried that I was going to have the baby that night. She was quite afraid. But, like, the doctor didn't seem, like, super stressed that, like, I could have this baby tonight. She was like, I don't know, London will know better once you get there, like, what's kind of going on. And so, like, I decided, and my husband decided, we'll send him home because we have 2 dogs to take care of, too. So we can't just, like, leave the dogs. And also, I didn't want him driving at 2 in the morning when he's also been up since 6 a.m. and gone to work. Driving it, like, just isn't safe. Like, he was falling asleep in the chair next to me, basically. So we're like, you can't drive. I don't need you getting in an accident. And I decided to, like, even if you can't be here when he's born, like, that's okay. Like, it would suck. It would be nice to have you, but it's not worth you risking your life and driving to London at 2 in the morning. Like, it's not. It's not a good idea. Like, you can come in the morning, you can feed the dogs, walk them, you know, depending on the situation, feed the dogs, you know, take care of them, and then come see me. And then kind of too, I'll have a better idea of where I'll be most likely and kind of what's going on, and we'll get to talk to the doctors better, and maybe I can sleep or something. I did not sleep well at all the entire time I was hospitalized. I was there for like a week and a half. So Saturday morning comes in, the doctor kind of looks, they send me off for an ultrasound, to kind of get a better idea, check out the blood flow, kind of what's going on, and kind of, you know, better identify than just the quick scanning of the doctors, like get a whole, like, you know, radiologist or ultrasound person to like actually read the ultrasound and like kind of get the report and stuff. So, the doctor said, yeah, it looks like your placenta is detached. You do have they confirmed the preeclampsia too. They put me on blood pressure medication to help try to bring my blood pressure down so it wasn't like as high. And he said, most likely you will leave here on Tuesday if the bleeding stops. Then we'll send you home and we'll put you on like a modified bed rest. Like, you can still kind of get up, but you won't be working for the rest of your pregnancy. We think you'll be able to, you know, kind of, if we can keep the bleeding at bay, kind of keep him in the womb until January, since at this point I was only 27 weeks. So, Tuesday, but because it was a holiday, they wouldn't have anyone else to Tuesday to do another scan on me. So they were like, we'll reassess on Tuesday how baby's doing. We'll put the Doppler monitor on multiple times a day, checking out how he's doing. You know, if you don't feel a lot of movement, let us know. Kind of let us know how you're feeling. And it was a good thing I was in the hospital because I started to get really bad blurry vision. I got really dizzy too while I was there. And I just started not feeling so good at all, and like the bleeding was kind of getting a little bit, it was starting to kind of slow down. Probably I would say by Thursday the bleeding had basically stopped. So Tuesday rolled around And again too, like, I didn't know how long I was supposed to be there. I had nothing packed, so my husband was kind of like every day just bringing me like a little bit more of clothes because I wasn't sure how long I was going to stay there. Again too, like I said, we thought I'd only be there until Thursday, like Tuesday. And then he also said too, based on the scan they did that morning, that it looked like there had been blood in baby's bowels. So it looks like baby had been swimming in the blood for a couple weeks. They thought the placenta had like detached a couple weeks ago, and then for whatever reason just like came out. So he was floating in the womb. There was blood in the womb because based on how his bowels were and like the color of his bowels, there was definitely like he was ingesting blood. So he had been in my womb bleeding out, like not bleeding out, but like bleeding for 2 weeks. Like, so it had detached at least 1 to 2 weeks ago based on like what they were seeing on the ultrasound. So that is very scary because the placenta is the thing keeping your baby alive. So the fact that it is partially detached, he said that you could have about 50% of your placenta detached and that you'd be able to still have a normal pregnancy. And they try to keep him in there as long as they possibly could, kind of, you know, until it becomes dangerous for me and him to still be in there. So as soon as it becomes dangerous for either of us, like, we gotta get him out of here. So they're like, basically kind of will monitor you for the rest of the week, see how he's doing, and then we'll kind of decide from there, like, when, you know, if D-Day needs to come sooner or later, or whether we can send you home. It kind of depends on how long you're bleeding for, he said too. So Tuesday rolls around. Scans are worse than they were on Saturday. Not he needs to come out right now, but like we need to keep a very close eye on you and him, and like you're not leaving basically until you have this baby. So that was very terrifying. Every day I was going for ultrasounds. Wednesday I didn't have an ultrasound till like 4 o'clock at night, so like that was kind of stressful, just like waiting all day being like, am I going to have an emergency C-section? Because at this point it was going to have to be a C-section. We'd have to deliver him by C-section if he had to be delivered super early. Unless I went into labor or something, then, you know, they would decide from there. But most likely it was going to have to be a C-section to get him out, depending on how severe the situation was and how badly he was declining. So Thursday came along of that week, and my symptoms were so much worse on Thursday. The blurry vision was so bad. It just felt like someone had taken my glasses and like smeared Vaseline over them. Like I felt like I was walking around without my glasses on my face, and I had my glasses on the whole time. Like my vision was definitely very blurry. I felt so nauseous. I was dizzy. I was so dizzy. And then they sent me for ultrasound, luckily at 8 o'clock in the morning, and my breakfast had just came at 8 o'clock in the morning, so I didn't have time to eat that. So I was like, okay, maybe I'm just feeling woozy because I haven't had breakfast yet. So, and throughout the entire pregnancy too, I'd eat every like couple of hours, otherwise I just didn't feel good, especially in the first trimester. The second trimester I kind of could eat kind of more normally, but I was like, maybe I'm just feeling really woozy because I haven't ate anything since like last night. So I go down for my ultrasound, I come back up, and immediately the doctor or the nurse practitioner comes in and she goes, do not eat anything. The ultrasound people just called us from downstairs and we need to, like, you're going to have surgery today. Like, today is D-Day, today is game day, like, we gotta go, we gotta get baby out. He is not doing well. The thing that they're worried about, it was his blood shunting back from him to the placenta, and that was happening, and that's why I was feeling so shitty too. So she was like, nope, it's go time. Call your husband, get him here as fast as you can. You gotta go have a C-section. Like, we gotta rally the team. Our doctors have to look over the ultrasound results too and like see, but you're having a C-section today. So that was very terrifying. So we had to wait. So, as you can tell, this is a different day, different month actually. I think this is like a month later than I originally filmed this video. It's kind of gloomy out, so I apologize about the lighting. But I didn't realize 10 minutes after my camera shut off and stopped recording, but I was crying too much at that point to continue filming. So then I had to get the courage up to finish the rest of this video. So it's been a month. I think I filmed that in mid-February, and now it's beginning of April now. So I looked briefly where I was when I finished filming, because my camera cut off on me and I didn't realize. So I was talking for another 10-15 minutes before I realized the camera had filled up on me and stopped recording. So we were at the hospital in Longstraff, at our local hospital, and the doctor was telling us, oh no, I was about to have the C-section. Sorry, I realized I had found other clips later on that I thought we'd stopped with this one, but we're actually about to have. So we were at the hospital, and they're telling us it's time to have the C-section. So I call my husband. He gets there within about an hour, a little over an hour, and my parents come with him, and his mom comes, and then we get taken off to the operating room, because they were going to do it awake with C-sections. If you just have an epidural and you're awake, your partner can come in the room with you and be with you during the surgery. And it takes about 45 minutes to an hour. So they got me in the room. They had me all prepped. They were about to do the epidural. They were just waiting for the OB team to come because they got called down to emerge for emergency. We got a phone call. Luckily, the anesthesiologist hadn't given me my epidural yet, because they got a phone call saying they needed to scrap the room and they needed it for another emergency C-section that had happened right now. So they had, and since they already brought me in the room, they had to scrap everything, like scratch everything, clean this whole room again, set it up for another C-section, which kind of seems silly that they should have just left me out of the room until the OB team was for sure ready, but whatever, I don't know hospital protocols, whatever. The anesthesiologist team was in there and ready to go, but because I was not sterile at that point, they had to redo it again for someone else. Anyways, so we get put into another room, which again is like, there's just another room that the hospital is I'm gonna have to clean, because no patient could go in here after me without cleaning it first. So we get put in another room for about an hour, and we're just like waiting for us to be called in, to be told, like, you know, we could go at any time. Like, we had no idea. They're like, they're gonna put us in this room, they'll probably call us in 5 minutes later, being like, we have another operating room ready, you guys can come in here. So an hour goes by. My nurse that was with me actually went on lunch, so the lady covering me for lunch was like taking my blood pressure and my vitals, and she goes, oh hon, your like blood pressure's really high. And I was like, oh, what's it at? She's like, oh, 144 over something. And I was like, oh, that's been normal for me today. I was like, by the way, I have preeclampsia. And she goes, oh, that makes so much sense now. She was like, I want to like retake your blood pressure. It's reading it a little high. And because, you know, this poor lady was just covering my nurse's lunch, so she had no idea anything about what was happening other than like, we're waiting to go to the ER for a C-section. So, you know, me and my husband are sitting there in this room for an hour. I thought he had texted my family and let them know what was happening. He said he texted his mom, but his mom didn't tell my parents because they were all sitting in the same, like, waiting area. But I guess she didn't look at her phone or something. I don't know. She never told my parents. My parents were like, what's happening? It's been like an hour. We haven't heard anything. And so then we get into the room. They take us into the operating room again. The same operating room as before. The anesthesiologist gives me my epidural, does all the checks, they think it's good, and they start cutting into me. I don't feel anything, and 2 minutes into the surgery, they tell me, like, they're like, oh, you know, it'll be a little bit uncomfortable, you'll feel a lot of pressure down there, and it's gonna be a bit a little bit of discomfort. And I'm lying there, and I'm like, this is not, I can't handle this. This is so painful. This is probably the worst pain I've ever been in my life. They said it's going to be a bit of discomfort. I could feel them pulling on my uterus so hard. I am crying, and I'm like, I can't handle this for 45 minutes. So I tell the anesthesiologist that I'm starting to cry. I'm like, this hurts too much. I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do it. And he like Luckily, he's like, hey guys, we gotta stop. She's feeling everything. Like, how far did you get? And they're like, oh, we got to her uterus, and we're starting to like try to get it out. And he was like, yeah, we gotta stop. We gotta kick Cody out of the, like, we gotta kick my husband out of the room because they didn't have to intubate me. And luckily, I'm still awake at this point because I'm like, oh, by the way, my arm feels really numb and tingly. And like, I was covered under all these blankets and Cody was holding my hand and he was like, yeah, now that you mention it, your hand's looking a little purple. And so the anesthesiologist like lifts up the covers, looks at my arm and then goes, does your arm normally look like that? And I look at it and I'm like, no, my arm's not normally purple and blue, dude. Like, I have tattoos, but like, no. Like, this blood pressure cuff is way too tight. So they take it off. Luckily, I'm still awake because I don't know if they would have noticed because my arms were all covered under all these blankets because the operating room is very cold and I was freezing. So they had me like a blanket, a nice warm out of the oven blanket. They were like the heater. I call it the oven, but like this is the little heater. They'd bring all these warm blankets out and they had it draped over top of me and then I was draped in surgical material. So like they had a big thing in front of my face. So of course they probably would not have noticed. Maybe they would have later on in the surgery, but we just got started. I highly doubt they would have. Because I was covered in drapes and everything was working fine. You know, everything was reading properly, but it was cutting the circulation off my arm. So my arm could have fallen off by the hour-long surgery. Who knows? I was very glad that I was awake for that because they switched the arm, gave me a smaller cuff, which didn't squeeze my arm as much. They double checked it too before they put me under that the cuff wasn't too tight, that it wasn't cutting off my circulation in my arm when it was doing the thing. Because it was very terrifying, and I'm actually kind of glad I wasn't awake for any of it because just feeling them pulling on me was so painful, and like also being able to feel everything they're doing and like knowing everything. And it was very scary for Cody, he said, because he got like thrown out of the room. Cody's my husband, by the way. I don't know if I'm sure you guys would have put two and two together, but Cody got taken out of the room and he was like, I didn't know for an hour if you and the baby were alive. And so he was like, I got to see him once he was out, and they had the NICU had him all like settled up in his like, they had him intubated and everything, and they let Cody go and see him and touch him. We weren't allowed to hold him at this point because again, he's very, very fragile. We had a baby boy. He was 1 pound 9 ounces, 9.2 ounces. So he is tiny, tiny baby. He was the size of a ruler when he was born, like 31 inches. So very tiny little guy. Even preemie clothes were too big on him. He was on a ventilator to help him breathe. He could not breathe on his own. His eyes were not open. He was not feeding. They tried to do breast milk, I think, for 24 hours, and it was not going well. Like, they tried not breast milk, but colostrum and donated milk too. They were doing, I think, a mil every 4 hours of colostrum, and it wasn't going well, so they switched over to 6 mil, well, not 6 mils, 1 mil every 6 hours of colostrum. He wasn't taking that well, so they switched him over to IV nutrients, which is what he was supposed to be getting anyways while he was in the womb. So it wasn't like the biggest deal, and they had me, you know, working on trying to get my milk supply in, trying to get my milk in for when he could eventually start feeding. They would have lots of milk stocked up for me. I remember waking up in the in the room, and I guess I asked Cody like 5 or 6 times if our baby was alive. We ended up naming him Noah. And Cody was like, yep, he's good, he's alive, he's okay. They don't really know what's happening with him right now, but they've taken him to the NICU, and they wheeled me in there before they took me over to the recovery room. It was like surreal getting to like see him because he was so tiny, and they had this little white hat on him. And he was under like this little bag thing because they put them in a little bag to try to help like keep all their heat in while they're really, really tiny, while they kind of get the incubator or kind of going up in temperature that he needs it to be and everything like that, and just trying to help like keep them a little better because they have like no fat on them at this point. So he was in an isolette, they call it, and he had it to be covered and everything like that, and he was under bilirubin light. The second time I went to see him, which wasn't till like, I can't remember if I went that night or not. I think I went that night. They wouldn't let me move out of my bed for 8 hours. So they had someone come wheel me down. Once I was able to get up out of bed, I got to go see him with Cody. We sat there for a couple hours in the NICU because I was in so much pain and I was like starving and I just wasn't feeling good and I was so groggy from the anesthesia. And we couldn't look at him. We couldn't talk to him. We couldn't touch him at that point. So it was just kind of like staring at this covered isolette. They did let it lift it up a little bit so I could see him. So I was just staring at him as much as I could, but they're also like, we do need to give him time. He needs like the light. He's very light sensitive right now, so we've got to just, follow his lead and not overstimulate him too much because he had, a terrible day. He went from being inside my nice warm womb, being starved, to this very cold, abnormal place, and it was just, he's hooked up to all these things and all these wires and all this monitoring equipment, and they're taking blood from him, and it was a whole ordeal for this poor little guy. This was the part where I started crying last time. So I'm gonna hopefully be able to get through the rest of this. I had really good milk production, which is crazy. I at one point was producing like, I think a week or two in, like my milk started like really ramping, and I was getting up to 1 liter of milk a day. So I actually have a picture of in the fridge, because I'd have to pump and then take it to the hospital with me, and they gave it in these like little urine container cups to bring in, and you had to like label and date it, like how much you get, like how much you pumped in the time and everything like that. And then they take them to the hospital. They would freeze them for you. You had to bring them within like 24 hours, otherwise you had to keep them frozen. If you did bring them, so every day I was bringing like a lunch bag full of milk. And at one point they were like, okay, we have enough milk, he's not eating it right now, so if you could like keep it at home and like store it in your freezer, that would be great, because like the milk lab is like kind of, you have too much milk and like we're not using it, so like just chill. But like, we're so glad you're making a lot of milk. And they did a whole bunch of tests on him. They called me in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. I think like the 3rd or 4th day that he was there. He was under the I think he was off the bilirubin lights at that point. He had been under them for a couple of days because his abdomen looked a little like distended and weird looking color. And they said that they had to go in. They did some x-rays. There was some air in there, so they went in and put a drain in him. He didn't have to be sedated or anything like that. I think that maybe they had to be sedated, but they have to be fully put under. They went in, cut a little hole, put a drain in, and what else happened? We did a drain, and he also tried to rip out his tube, his endotracheal tube, which is in his nose actually. He tried to rip that out on them after they had put the drain in him. I think he was protesting it because he gets these little hands and he would grab and he would just like pull. And I don't know how it didn't hurt the poor little guy, but he ripped out his breathing tube on him. So they called me and were like, yeah, we've had a very eventful night with your son. He's been very naughty. And I'm like, oh my God, what happened? It's 3 a.m. and the hospital is calling me, which is never a good sign. And they were like, he's okay, he's stable now, we've got him stable, we've got this drain in him, trying to help drain out the fluid and everything. Because there's something going on with the intestines, we're not 100% sure. We'll take more x-rays, we'll do an ultrasound on him. And I think he was born on Thursday, October 17th, and then the following week they did a ultrasound of his brain. They were also going to do like an ophthalmic ultrasound too, because his eyes still weren't open yet, and they just wanted to like see what was going on with his eyes. So they had those scheduled. They had a cardiac ultrasound scheduled for him too. They did an ultrasound of his heart. His heart wasn't fully pumping like a normal heart should be, so some of it was kind of getting backlogged through him, I believe. So his heart wasn't the greatest. He needed to be on blood transfusion multiple times a day. He needed a blood product because he was losing so much blood. They couldn't figure out why, and then they did a head ultrasound of him because they said they don't like to do anything for the first 3 days. They don't want to like move him at all, like move his head, body, or anything for the first 3 days, and that's absolutely necessary. So all they did was take x-rays, because with the isolette they have a plate they can just stick it under them, and they don't actually have to move the baby. It just goes under the isolette, like in the isolette, and they can take x-ray that way. So that was kind of cool to see. So they did a CT, not CT, an ultrasound of his brain, and they found, do I think that's just 1 second? They found grade 2 bleeding on the right or left side of his brain, and grade 1 bleed on the right side of his brain. And they said, you know, sometimes this can resolve on its own, sometimes it can get worse, sometimes they can be okay. Like, it's just so hard to tell because he's just so little. And I think he was a week at this point. But they were like, we'll check it again in a week, see where the bleeding is at, see if the bleeding is stopped. You know, like, he might have some developmental issues, but because he's so young, maybe we can retrain. Like, the brain hasn't made any sort of pathways yet, they said, so they can possibly still train the brain, maybe not in the normal pathways, but different pathways. But like, he's definitely going to need physio, he's going to need extra work as a child, and you know, he might have some mental delays. And we're like, okay, that's totally fine, we will work with that. You know, whatever he needs, we can support him through that. And then I get a call. We saw him on the weekend, we were there on the weekend, and his like tummy issue was not getting any better. Because he was on such a high ventilation, it like shakes the baby, but the baby doesn't actually like feel the shaking. Even though it looks kind of like violently, like they're shaking, like the body's like this, but they're okay. They said like he was doing stable well on the shaking, like all his vitals were normal, but the tummy issue was getting worse. And the doctor said that the surgeon said they were 100% sure he had necrotizing enteritis colitis, which do not Google neck. It's very gross. That's what they told us. They're like, don't Google it. I have looked at it. It is quite disgusting. So don't Google it. But it's necrotizing enterocolitis, I believe. We'll call it neck for short. He was like 100% he has neck. And because they did cultures on it and they found some bacteria, but they were like, nothing really like crazy abnormal. And the surgeon was like, yeah, normally we don't see neck until like 2-week-old babies, but he was like, your baby definitely has a bad case of necrotizing, a bad case of neck. We're gonna put him on antibiotics, but if we have to do, because they were throwing up in the air whether or not they need to go in surgically and figure out what's going on with his abdomen, figure out if like his bowel's bad, if we've got to take a piece of his intestine out or something. Which is terrifying to think about on a 1-week-old baby. A 1-week-old baby that is 2 pounds. Like, it's a 2-pound baby. And he is so tiny and so fragile and so frail. And he's got a bleed in his brain. And this doctor tells us that if he has to go have surgery, he's not going to make it. So, that was Sunday. Tuesday, I get a call at 7 o'clock in the morning. We were planning on going to London. Usually we went there around like 10. Because I had to walk the dogs first, and my parents were driving me because I was in no shape after my C-section to drive, and they were walking the dogs for me because I wasn't allowed to do anything for like 5 weeks. I'm not really allowed to like walk very far, or 6 weeks you can't do anything. And I also couldn't walk farther than like 2 houses down the street and come back. Like, I was not able to walk our dogs, and they need like an hour-long walk a day, like twice a day. So we were planning on going up around like 10 o'clock that day. And then I got a phone call at 7 o'clock saying, you know, you have to have emergency surgery on Noah. So I'm terrified. I'm not sure he's going to make it through this surgery. They said they've got him prepped. He's going to go in at 9. I was like, okay, I probably won't be able to get there until 10, unfortunately, just the way that everything's working out with my parents. And they have papers, like they have stuff they need to do before they can come get me. Then we got to walk the dogs before we go to London, because who knows how long I'm going to be at London. And I have to also they need this. Like, I can't just ignore them. Well, something's going on with Noah. Like, yes, I wish I could just drop everything and be right there with him, but I also wasn't able to, like, they have a Ronald McDonald House there, but I wasn't able to be on my own yet. Like, I could not physically make it from the Ronald McDonald House to the hospital without help. Like, I needed someone to, like, push me in a chair. Like, I could not physically make it that far, and I'd be stranded there by myself, because my husband had to stay here with the dogs and work. Like, he decided he still wanted to work. He could have taken off caregiver leave with me, but because we couldn't really do anything with Noah, we weren't sure how long Noah was going to be in the hospital. They assumed at least until his due date, so that was 3 months. So we had kind of decided, you know, I would definitely stay up when I was feeling better, and when we could do more stuff with Noah. Cody thought he might come down, but until this point we couldn't look at him, can't touch him, can't talk to him. So he was like, there's not really a whole lot that he can do except be there for me, but he was like, I'd rather kind of just make money right now, because we kind of weren't expecting me to go off work for another 3 months. So we kind of needed some money, and we've got bills coming due, we've got mortgage, property tax, all due at the end of the month, so like we kind of needed an income. And the money from the child's caregiver leave thing doesn't start for like a couple weeks to a month, so like we kind of needed an income. Because this all happened right around Thanksgiving. We get that call. I show up at the hospital around 10. He's not back out of surgery yet, so we're just waiting. And I go to the bathroom, and like I see this herd of a team, and his doctor is with him, and she's like pointing to me to go back. She's like, we've got him, he's here. Like, have him in his little isolate. Of course I can't see him because he's got his cover on him. So I rush back to where he's normally kept, like his normal little room area, because he was in a room with like 4 other babies. Like, there was a giant room, and there's like 4 isolates in either, like all 4 corners, and you kind of get their own little private area. And like the nursing staff is in the middle and stuff like that. And so the doctor like points to me like, go back, we're coming now with him. And I'm like, okay, I can wait to go pee, it's fine. And they do like this whole debriefing of the surgery and everything that happened, and everything went okay. He was alive. They luckily did not have necrotizing, or did not have neck. This other doctor was completely wrong. Didn't look like there was infection at all. He was able to keep most of his bowels, like most of everything was okay. He just had a blockage of some poop that was in his stomach that he could not pass on his own, so they had to take that out. And then they had like a little stoma on him, just to kind of like, they had a little bit of his intestine was sticking out, so they could kind of like keep an eye on it or something, I guess. I don't know. He had a stoma. They were going to remove it. They were going to go back in once he was a little bigger and able to handle the anesthesia more. In a couple weeks, I said they'd probably go back in and like put the rest of the intestine back in together. For whatever reason, they needed to keep it out for right now. I can't fully remember what that reason was, but he had a little stoma. And they said he had like a little scar, but you know, that was the least of my worries. I was so glad he was okay. They said the next 72 hours, this was on Tuesday, the next 72 hours after they have surgery, babies are usually really bad. They don't usually do well. It's very critical. The next 72 hours is probably going to be very rough on him. And he was doing okay. He wasn't like the greatest. His heart rate was definitely more elevated over the next couple of days. He definitely needed to need more blood product. He was on morphine, trying to help with the pain because he was in a lot of pain. And then Thursday, they did another ultrasound. They did a heart ultrasound too. They did a brain ultrasound, and they didn't have the results. The heart ultrasound person came while I was there, but it was like 5 o'clock, and they still hadn't come yet for the head ultrasound, and they weren't sure when the people were coming. They just kind of show up whenever they have available time. So they were like, okay, we'll talk to you tomorrow with the results. Like, once we get the head ultrasound results and we'll have a chance to look at them, we'll go over with them tomorrow on Friday. I was like, okay, there, and not good news. At this point too, I hadn't been able to hold him. I've been able to like have him hold my finger, I think for 2 hours one day. That was like the best 2 hours of my life, just getting to like hold him and talk to him. And that was after his ultrasound on his heart, because they had to get the isolate off of him. And they also had to place an arterial line, and the nurse was like, do you want to hold his hand? And I was like, absolutely. So they let me hold his hand during his heart ultrasound, and not during the arterial line because that was a sterile procedure, but I got to like stand and be in the room and watch. And then after that, he was like overstimulated. I couldn't touch him, so that was totally fine. But it was just so magical getting to hold his little hand and getting to see his little face without having like the glass, the ice lead, and everything like that. Because there was a couple of days where he was doing really bad, and we couldn't look at him. We could not talk to him. There was no touching allowed. The nurses were handling him very minimally, and he was not enjoying the very minimal handling. Like they would go in, like I think at like 8 o'clock to do their handling, and they'd go in at 2 o'clock and do handling. And kind of like flip him over a little bit and change his diaper. He was not tolerating any of that. They turned the light on, and his little eyes, he just had this grumpus little face, and he got so mad. Like he got this little raisin face, an old man raisin face, and he got so mad every time they didn't do anything with him. He was just not. His heart rate was up, his blood pressure, like he's not doing good. They had a hard time regulating his blood pressure too. It kept being super low. And they were giving him meds to try to help with that, and a whole bunch of blood work, and he's still losing a ton of blood. They couldn't figure, like, they know why, but they weren't telling me kind of why until they got PET ultrasound results. So we get the results on Friday. Not good news. His grade 2 brain bleed went to a grade 4 brain bleed on the left side, and a grade 3 brain bleed on the right side. And so 90% of his brain was damaged. And we lost him the next day. We got to go in on Saturday. They called me Saturday morning saying he's not doing well. Get here as soon as possible. So we got there. We got to say goodbye to him. I got to hold him for the first time. And, you know, they kept him on a bunch of morphine so that he wouldn't be in distress and in pain, and so that he could tolerate me being able to hold him. And Cody got to hold him, my dad held him, Cody's mom held him. We got to give him a bath, which was exciting because I never got to bath him before. And we got to do a little mold. Actually, I have it here. I did this little mold. Let you guys see it, of his little feet and our hands, just so you guys can see how tiny. There's his little toes, and this is me and my husband's hands. And we got to do that with him. And he passed away in my arms. And the doctor said too, his survival rate and his life would be a very, very low quality of life. He would have, worst case scenario, been a giant vegetable for the rest of his life. He might have needed to be on a breathing tube for the rest of his life. They weren't really sure. They said he'd be deaf, he'd be blind, he wouldn't be able to walk, he'd be in a wheelchair, he'd be highly on the spectrum, high autism, high whatever else possibly wrong with him. The camera just stopped recording again, but I caught it this time. So he would be, worst case scenario, he was going to be a vegetable for the rest of his life. Probably need a feeding tube. He would probably have to be in diapers. He'd be deaf, blind for sure, they said. High on the autism spectrum, like high on the spectrum, very super autistic. He may need a breathing tube for the rest of his life. We had no idea. He'd definitely be in a wheelchair, they said. Most likely wouldn't be able to walk ever, I thought, at all, just because of how much of his brain was affected by it. That wasn't quality of life we wanted for him either. Like, there is no reason he couldn't have been over 6 feet tall and could have just been this giant vegetable baby for the rest of his life. And so I think it was the best thing that he passed on us. Because as hard as it is to say that is not a life I wish for anyone. myself included, I would not want to be a vegetable. I would not want to put him through that because he would have absolutely no life. He wouldn't be able to play with the other kids. He wouldn't be able to hug me. He wouldn't know what love is for sure. He couldn't communicate to me at all, and I couldn't communicate to him. Yes, he was a little baby, and it's so hard because he seemed so perfect. But it's easy when they're 2 weeks old. It's hard when they're 19 and a giant baby. So he could have been, you know, over 6 feet, because me and my husband are both over 6 feet. You know, a 200-pound giant baby vegetable thing. He could have been, you know, hospitalized his entire life. He never even made it out of the hospital. And it was just, it's been so hard for both of us trying to go through that. This is why it's been taking me so long to make this video, because normally I just break down and cry and can't finish. But it's been, he would have been 6 months recently, and I miss him so much, and it is so hard. And yeah, that's been our story. And we got a phone call the day he was supposed to be born. So my due date was January 7th. We got a phone call January 7th saying that I was eligible for IVF. So our fertility journey has not ended there. I am supposed to be starting IVF middle April, May, kind of depending on when my cycle comes. So we do have some hope in the future that we may be able to have more children. I'm definitely not ready to be pregnant again, but I don't really have a choice because we can't really say no to this IVF. Otherwise, we're starting on a wait list 2 years from now, and I know I would be kicking myself in 2 years if I had done it sooner. So as much as I'm not ready right now, that is what's going to be happening. When we start the IVF and everything, I'll start filming the process of that, because that's going to be a whole ordeal. And the hospital, they gave us a box of his things. We have his handprint and his footprint, a little clipping of his hair. We got to put him in a little outfit on the last day and bundle up in a blanket. We got to bring all of that home with us. They put in his, it's a very nice wooden box. I'm not going to show it to you guys because it's more for me. But it's sitting over here. And it's got his urn in it now. We got him a little heart. We decided to get him cremated. So his ashes are in the box as well. It's got his little blood pressure cuff that they had on him. He's got his little heart monitor clips, things that they've clipped off for him and kept for us. They've got a clipping of his hair. I have all his little clothes in a baggie right now to preserve the smell of him. I know that might sound weird, but I didn't have it for a long time, but now I'm like, no, I want to keep that smell of him as long as possible, because when I really miss him, I go and hold his little outfit. He was so big in that little outfit. It was a pretty outfit, and it was giant on him. Like, he was drowning in it. And also too, he swelled up so much. Like, he looked like Jabba the Hutt at the end. Like, he just was giant, puffy face. He looked from, like, my one coworker said he went from an old man raisin to a grape. Like, he just swelled up so much, and they said when babies are doing well, they swell up. And so it's been a rough 6 months. That's why videos have been very sparse, and even the videos that I have filmed, I have like filmed them all in one day, clumped them together, and then like uploaded them for like over a month. So that's why videos have been sparse and in between, and there's been a lot of gaps and things, and even if videos are coming up, this is why, because I have been dealing with this grief. I'm sitting in his room right now, in the nursery that was supposed to be his room, and it's been hard. I think it was slightly easier that we never brought him home from the hospital, so it wasn't really his room, and he didn't die here on us, but we were expecting 3 months in the NICU, and it was going to be hell, and I was going to go to Ronald McDonald's house as soon as I could. I had plans to go at the beginning of November, or the middle of November, end of November, beginning of December. I was going to stay there with him full time once I was able to actually kind of be up and moving, because after my C-section it took me 6 weeks for me to recover, for me to be able to like really walk around and do stuff and actually be able to get from like Ronald McDonald house to that room. But we only made it 2 weeks with him, and a lot of the time, like I said, we couldn't talk to him because that was just too overstimulating for him. Touching him most days were not allowed just because he couldn't tolerate it. I did get to touch him a little bit, like sometimes I got to hold his hand for a few minutes for as long as he would tolerate it. But if at any point he became distressed, the nurse would be like, you know, we've got to let him relax. And I was like, that's fine, I want to like be good for him. And they had talked about in a couple weeks being able to hold him, which was going to be so exciting. I did get to hold him on the last day. It's really hard not being able to hold a baby and seeing your baby hooked up to all these tubes and everything, and just not knowing if he's going to be alive, if he's going to make it. Getting up in the middle of the night, checking your phone constantly to make sure you didn't miss a call from the hospital, because there's nothing worse than getting a call at 3 a.m. and like something wrong with your baby. But we spent as much time as we could with him. And yeah, it's been a lot on us. I've still got the stupid scar from my C-section, but our journey is not over yet. I've been seeing a therapist, which has been super helpful. I've had to completely get rid of social media. Like, I can't do Facebook, I can't do Instagram. Instagram's okay because I don't really post anything and there's no baby content on my Instagram, but my TikTok, I had to get off TikTok because, oh my god, it just sent me all these sad video compilations of like people's family members dying, and like I was like, what the hell, TikTok? I used to just use this for book talk, and then all of a sudden I'm getting all these extremely sad videos, so I had to delete TikTok off my phone. I had to delete Facebook because it just kept showing me baby videos, people's pictures. The thing that actually was the straw that broke my back was a picture of my coworker and her new baby, and she had named her son Noah, and I was just like, nope, I can't do this, and I deleted the app on my phone. So I've not been on Facebook in like 6 months. I have Messenger because people still message me and stuff, but I have had to completely get rid of social media on my phone because it's just been too hard. It's too sad. I can't really watch YouTube videos either because a lot of my YouTube videos were all baby content and people with babies, and it's just too triggering and I can't do it right now. And yeah, my sister-in-law, they had a new baby right before Noah was born, like the same week, so that has been extremely difficult anytime I've had to see him, because they're a week apart. Like, me and Noah are less than a week apart, and so it's really hard to see them with their new baby when my baby is no longer with us. That has been really hard. Going through funeral arrangements for a baby, oh my god, that is just heartbreaking. Luckily, the funeral waives the fees for the infants. A lot of them do, but some of them don't, so just check if you ever have to go through that. But this guy was nice enough to waive the fees and only charged just what we had to, like what the city charged him basically, and he gave us the unit cost, so everything, because just even a consultation with the funeral director was $500, so I was very glad that that was all waived. We decided not to have a funeral for him just because nobody knew him, nobody saw him, the only people that met him were there on the day that he died. So that was my parents and Cody's mom, because Cody's dad had passed away this year, so unfortunately he wasn't with us. And yeah, we didn't really want to expose him to the world or anything like that until he was, had he been here at home with us, it might have been a different situation about a funeral, but since it was only Cody and I that really met him, we decided not to share him with the world because he's ours. And I've gone back and forth about making this video. So please be nice in the comments, because I'm still very fragile and it's been hard. And I've thought a lot about making this video, and I've gone back and forth, and I've sat down to film this many times, and I've just been crying too much to make it through. And this is the least amount I've cried the entire time I've tried to film this video. So yeah, that is our fertility journey. I do have, like I said, I mentioned, I have a video. I will probably post it about my first trimester with him. I did never make a second trimester video because I was going to over Thanksgiving weekend, and then I was going to post both of them, but all this shit went down, and it is going to be terrifying getting pregnant again. I don't know how long it's going to take us, but I am so scared that it is going to happen again, and that I'm going to lose another baby or have a miscarriage or something. So yeah, we'll see what kind of videos come up. Like, I haven't left YouTube, I just need some time. I do have a whole bunch of videos uploaded and like are scheduled to upload to. I don't know when this video is going up exactly, but whenever we start the IVF process, I will for sure document that, because I think that would be interesting to go through. That's where I've been for the last 6 months, crying in this room. I was off work until February. I went back to work in February because my mat leave ended. Like, you get 15 weeks of mat leave covered just for you to recover, and then there's the parental leave, which I think is 35 weeks or something. So basically adds up to a whole year, but because we didn't have a baby, there was no parental leave. We were taking caregiver leave so that I didn't cut into my maternity leave while I was off. So once Noah died, we went from caregiver leave to mat leave. Because that was, caregiver leave is like, child caregiver leave is when you've got a sick baby, a sick child, and you need to take time off work to help them. So that's what I did. And yeah, it's been really shitty. There are support groups out there. I have not been able to go to any of them. I do know about some of them. I just have not been able to. It's just too hard. Even seeing babies, even talking about this. I've done better than I thought I was going to, but man, it never gets easier. You think with them every day. Yeah, like I said, this video took a very turn for the worse, and this was not what we were expecting, what we were hoping for. You know, we thought we would have 3 shitty hell months in the NICU, and then we get to bring him home. That was the goal. That was the plan. It was not to lose him in 2 weeks. And also having surgery on a week-old baby is hella terrifying. Like, I could not breathe until I got there and I knew he was okay. Like, it was horrible, and every time I wasn't with him, I felt so guilty, and then when I was there, I felt guilty because I wasn't home with the dogs, and there was just a lot of guilt happening. And I mean, there still is a lot of guilt, and they said there was nothing I could do, that I just grew a shitty placenta, and let's hope next time my body grows a better one. But yep. So that has been our fertility journey. So far, it's been a long 4 years, and we didn't get the outcome that we had wanted. But that doesn't mean that we've given up. I've got IVF starting shortly. we'll go from there. And who knows what hell that monstrosity is going to bring, because it is a monstrosity. It is a lot to undertake. And the doctor said I had to wait 6 months before I started trying, and so April will be, it means April now, so that'll be 6 months, so we can start trying soon. And yeah, that is this video. I know it was a lot. It's probably, I don't know if it's gonna be an hour long, we'll see, probably close to an hour. But that's my story, and I just thought I would share it in case someone else is going to do the same thing, because infertility sucks and you just feel so alone, but just know you're not alone, and grief is very different on every person. It's been a very trying time for both me and my husband, and we're just taking it one day at a time, and yeah. I'm sure I have pictures in here too of some things. Like I said, we didn't want to share him, so I don't really show photos of him per se. There might be a couple, but there's not like a bunch or anything like that. So yeah, that is this video. Not gonna say I hope you guys enjoyed it, because it was not a fun ride at all to go through. I'm sure filming this is gonna, not filming this, editing this is also gonna suck. Probably gonna be crying while editing too. But yeah, I'll see you guys later. Bye. Thanks for letting me come here and cry my heart out to you guys. I love you.